Starting. Good morning. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's another week of our weekly tech forum. As it turns out, it's not a Wednesday. This is actually a pre-recorded show. It's just because of the scheduling. Also because I'm going to be off for 2 weeks in my annual retreat again. So we're going to try to record this, and I believe we can schedule. This would be scheduled to appear on Love My Tool on the 10th, September 10th. Today I actually get a chance to interview someone I met for the first time during Shockfest. Mr. John Brosnan, who is the founder and CEO of NetFort, one of our newer sponsors. Good evening, John. How are you?
I'm pretty good, Denny. How are you?
Good, good. So tell us where you're locating right now.
I'm in Galway. It's on the west coast of Ireland. Next stop is New York, the Atlantic, a small piece of pond between us.
Mm-hmm.
And a small university town, about 2 universities on the coast. Really nice town.
Okay, so we're gonna chat a bit about you and your company. Before we do that, let me introduce you. Let me also introduce my better half, Mr. Tim O'Neill. Hi, Tim.
Good morning, everybody. How is everybody today? Hey, John, it's good to hear someone from the mother country. It's a grand day when we can get one of my mates into.
So my foreign accent is just not good enough for Tim anymore. So Tim, before I bring back to John, tell us, John is a good friend of yours. You know him. You introduced John to me when we were at Shockfest. But you know John, right? So give us a synopsis of who John is and what his company does and why you think so highly of him and his company.
Well, I think what got me to like John a lot more was when he brought me some beautiful whiskey to some wonderful Irish whiskey. It's a medicine from Ireland, as they say.
John uses whiskey like I use dim sum. It always works.
I met John a little while ago through Derek Delaney, one of his employees, who had written a couple of articles. And the minute we got together, we hit it off. We're both geeks. I'm an American, but my family came directly from Ireland. And so anytime anybody around me has a wee bit of the brogue, it makes me feel wonderful. And so the thing I like about John's company is what you see is what you get. There's no pretense. There's not a lot of hype. It's just we build a good product, and here it is. And not long after meeting him and Derek, and that I recommended him to some really high-end reps that I don't usually recommend people to, and I've played with their product a little bit, and I think it's really got a tremendous capability. It's using some new dimensions. John's been kind of up and down over there, but the company is doing good now. They're on a straight path. They got great people, and I think they've got a great solution. And they give away some free tools also that are very cool. So and he's from Ireland. My God, I can't stop saying that enough. He's
okay. All right. Thank you, Tim. So John, with that, why don't we quickly tell our viewers what does your company do? I know the company's been around for about 10 years, and you're doing really well, very profitable and all that. But if I just happen to accidentally tune into this episode, what do you want to tell our viewers?
I guess NetFort, the company's about 10 years old, and our focus is on network and user activity monitoring. Kind of find out what users are doing across your network, giving deeper insight into activity and usage across your network, using deep packet inspection rather than using agents and clients. So we try and give people more visibility into activity and users and what they're doing across the network, not just at the edge. And that visibility can be used for different pains. It can be used for troubleshooting problems on the network, performance problems, troubleshooting bandwidth issues, for reporting, for compliance, for investigations, for forensics, because we capture this information from traffic. We try and present it at a very readable and interpretable level of detail, so even normal users, not just geeks like Tim and I or yourself, can interpret and see what's going on. And then when they see something unusual or need to understand what's going on, they can get the detail. They can get the name of the file, the name of the person, the name of the URI, to really prove like that it's not the network, it's the user, or to prove that it's a misconfiguration. So a level of detail using our software that most people can interpret and understand.
And how big the company would have to be? How much? What would be the size of the company before they would thought to use your product?
Well, we know there's a lot of forensic systems out there, and tools like Wireshark, which is a great tool. And some of these, systems are very complex. Some of them are expensive. And one of the things we see as we travel around is that the number, so we got customers like the U.S. Navy, we got customers like a legal firm in New York, Kramer & Levin, we got customers of all different shapes and sizes, a lot of public sector. And the amount of time that the users have and to be able to troubleshoot and to understand and get training on these complex systems is very limited. And the amount of real kind of power users out there are few and far between. They're like hen's teeth. So, it's usually the very techie and powerful users that a lot of the time they end up in enterprises. But, there's also this SME companies, medium-sized companies, and they got to know what's going on in their network. And they have to have systems that they can use and afford as well. So that's kind of one of our objectives, is that, any company of any size can download and try our software very easily.
Mm-hmm.
We're not shipping our own appliances. You don't have to be a large enterprise to understand the data. But if you've got a decent sized network with, say, maybe, I don't know, even 30 or 40 users on it, and you need some visibility to understand what users are doing, or to troubleshoot something, or to investigate a security issue, you should have a system available to you pretty easily.
So I think you just said it, but I want to be sure to understand it. So is your product a hardware box, an appliance that plugs into the network, part of the network, or is it more of a software?
Yeah, it's kind of both, really. So it's a software download. So you can go to our website and you can download a 30-day trial, and you can deploy that piece of software on a standard server, and we give some specifications, or like a Dell or a HP. It's Unix-based, so you don't need any operating system. Or you can deploy it on VMware or Hyper-V. So you got those options, and people usually between those three options, people can deploy it fairly easily. So effectively, though, to answer your question, it is an appliance that you deploy on the network, but you deploy your own appliance, either virtual or physical, and using our software, which you download.
I see. So I think
Right.
we also talk about doing a follow-up interview or a follow-up LMTV with you, where you might do a live demo of your product. So let's I think there's enough information here for viewers to might want to come back again for that. So if it's okay, let's talk about you and your company. And you mentioned that you started the company 10 years ago, and so I suspect that you have some co-founders.
That's right.
So maybe we can talk about them for a little while before we focus on your own experience.
Yeah. So when I did electronic engineering in the University of Limerick, and I graduated in 1986. And at the time in Ireland, and UK as well, there was a bit of recession going on, and it was tough enough to get a job. But when I did electronics, one of the things I kind of specialized in, I always believed that anybody going to college or anybody in life, should have a kind of a niche, a special area of expertise that kind of is maybe a bit rare, but it always gives you a good chance of getting a job, And one of the things when I did electronics, I did a lot of hardware, and I was very interested in software as well, and assembly language programming. I had a work placement with a company, and I was doing 68,000 assembly, Motorola 68,000 programming. But I always wanted to do software that I could see it doing something to the hardware. I could see it driving stuff. And I got a job in digital equipment, DEC, at the time. And DEC were setting up a development group in Galway. And before they set up the group, they shipped us over to the UK for a while for work experience, and shipped us over to the States, to Nashua and New Hampshire. And I mean, DEC was a great company to work for. The company was doing very well at the time. They had fantastic engineers, and so the experience I got was fantastic. And the training they gave us, Denny, like the amount they invested in the people, and I needed that investment, believe you me. Looking back on it, how little I knew, it was unbelievable. So I think that was one of the things, actually, you know, looking back on it, to work for a company like a multinational like DEC, who had the engineering ethos and what they were doing, and working with the guys in the States who could afford to spend a lot of money on me, I was very lucky, you know.
I don't know how many of our viewers remember the company, but it was a fantastic company. I actually took my first helicopter ride visiting DEC. I landed in Boston, and I actually just got off the jet, and then there was a helicopter waiting for us. I mean, this is how their workers commute.
Yeah, it was. They gave us helicopter rides from Logan to the mill, which was their headquarters. This old mill in Maynard, and the rumor was it was a very complex old building, and the rumor, you get lost very easily in the mill. And the rumor was there was a guy in the mill, and he was still walking around for 10 years trying to get out. But anyway.
Yeah. Well. Okay. So we're still a long way from you starting your own company, right?
Yeah.
So how did that go?
Yeah, well, I guess then I worked in their high-performance computing division, and I worked and I met a lot of people, hired people, and one of the things, I was at an event recently. We have an organisation here in Galway called Startup Galway. So what we're trying to do is one of the things we try to do in Galway is encourage startups and entrepreneurs. And a guy, I remember I was at an event recently, and we were having an event where a guy was talking about setting up his company, and a guy stood up at the back, and he said, "I've got a good idea, but I'm looking for people, to start the company with." And I was going to say to him, I didn't say it to him, but so I worked in a multinational, and it's like, we really get to know somebody when you're in college and you live with them, or you move in with somebody, or when you work with somebody and you're working at times for 12 hours and traveling and you're under pressure, you get to find the people who really care about what they do, who are smart, who you trust, and they're the guys that you want to start a company with. And so I met two guys, when I was working in digital, that I said, I always had this thing, that I wanted to do something. I wanted to be, when I was traveling with DEC, Denny, around the States, and I'd sit alongside somebody at the back of the plane or whatever, and I'd say to him, "Hey, what do you do?" And he said, "Well, I've started up my own company, and I'm an entrepreneur, and this is what we do." And I said to myself, I want to be that guy. And I am.
So you started your company with two of your co-workers?
That's right, with Morgan Doyle and Michael Finn. Yeah,
and all three of you were from Ireland?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
And you met in the States?
We met in Galway. I came back to Galway after a few years in the States, and we set up the group in Galway. We were doing the high performance computing, and these are two guys that I worked with. That Morgan worked directly for me, and we just started discussing, what we want to do next. I was 10 years in DEC. The guys were not there as long. There was an opportunity we said, we saw an opportunity for a product. We wanted to bootstrap it. We said, we knew we could write software.
So let me understand something. So this was 10 years ago.
That's correct, yeah.
That was 10 years ago. And so your company was started with two of your fellow countrymen when you were actually doing your time, quote unquote, in a foreign country. And you came back home and you started a company and you actually built it into a successful enterprise with the original people.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want you to know that is not a typical entrepreneur story. Tim will tell you that. We spend half of life building things and the other half of life hiding things.
Yeah.
Right, Tim? I mean, the chance that you actually start with something and then end up with the same thing, that is not a common success entrepreneur story. Let me tell you, you are a very fortunate man.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not going to pretend there has been. It's a roller coaster. It's up and down. And we
But
decided with bootstrappers that we would say we knew we could write software, but we didn't know we could sell software.
yeah. Now,
So we
but
said,
now, so let me ask you something else. Was your original besides the technical aspect, was it meant to be a product company, or did you start out as a consulting company?
yeah, it was meant to be part of the company. Yeah, we
Oh,
had
really?
some ideas. Initially, we had a small product that would help. Just it was kind of an intrusion detection system, and based around Snort, a well-known open source version. And we kind of realized after a while, after talking to some customers and the what they were using for security, that like getting information from traffic, there was a lot more information one could get from traffic than just security. But to answer your question, yes, we decided that we would do a small bit of consultancy at the start to try and make some money, to get to know people. We also had, because digital at the time employed, I'm guessing, maybe around 3,000 people in Ireland. And I had made, and obviously I worked in the States and I worked with them in the UK a bit. There was a fantastic network of contacts. People really helped each other. And when we decided to set up the company, the amount of help we got, excuse me, from ex-colleagues was fantastic. You meet somebody and they'll say, well, what do you do now, John? I said, well, we started our own company. I said, let me know what I can do to help.
Yeah, I think that's my experience as well. Now, in the States, it's a little bit different in the States, especially a little bit different in Silicon Valley. It has always been a technology center, so people here are accustomed to starting their own company and either building it to success or building, and restarting and all that. But what I find is that the time when you can actually get help is when the economy is not in its best shape,
Yeah.
because then people can, all of a sudden they say, well, here's something that is interesting, let me be part of it. And I suspect that in Ireland at that time, 10 years ago, was also kind of a starting of the technology scene. So perhaps again, I don't. Do you see the same thing now as you saw 10 years ago? Is it still that much camaraderie, or is it more people now, everyone for themselves?
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. I think I would definitely say, like 10 years ago, the amount of people, like we were an exception, the amount of people that were doing to try and do what we did, that took the chance, and left an enterprise. And I remember telling my mum, I'm going to leave. It actually was Compaq at the time, because they had acquired Tech. I was going to leave Compaq and start up our own company. She said, wow, you can't be serious. And I said, Mom, I want to do this, I'm going to do this. And she said, does that mean you're going to be on the road selling software? And I said, yeah. She said, oh no, she just couldn't believe it. But I think at the time, that's a good point. I mean, I've thought back on it, and it's a thing I really believe in, that the more you give, the more you get. And when I meet somebody, and I met a lot of great people in Sharpfest, and through my career and Deck, when you meet somebody, like one of the contacts is a guy in a company called Xilinx who's given me a lot of help, and and advice. And he said to me, I can do anything, and he never ever asked for anything in return, didn't he? Not a thing. And that's a really good sign of a person, when they're willing to help you, and you're going to help him back 10 times more if you can. If he asked me to do anything for him, he'd be the top of my list. This particular guy, for example. Guys like that are so few and far between.
Mm-hmm.
I think, to answer your question, though, I think now maybe, unfortunately, it's maybe because people are busy or something. Maybe people are they're always kind of looking at an angle. I don't know. It's an interesting question. I think the amount of people that really, that you really are really willing to help you, and they're not expecting any in return, and the amount of those people that you have in your life, that you meet in your career, you can probably count them on one hand. But I could be wrong, you know.
Well, I think that's the what Tim and I has always tried to explain to our sponsors is that sure, you know, I Love My Tool is a place where people come from knowledge. So sure, you know, you're gonna be able to advertise here, but that's not really what we offer. What we offer is a vehicle and a platform for you to be part of that community, and for you to build a brand for your company. And brand building starts with generosity, and this is counterintuitive, but you really need to put your customer first, and to be able to say to them, says, Mr. Customer, it turns out that my product is not the best solution for you, and here's why. And I think in my last company I done a lot of that, where I just went to and the customers come to me and says, well, you're selling your product for $27,000. I can do it for a tenth of the price, and I would say, then you should do it. You should do it. If you have an application where you don't require all the features that I have to offer, all the ease of use that I have to offer, and right now your budget can only afford a tenth of what we're asking, you should do it. And by the way, I can bring you some partners that would offer that product. You know, and that's how we built the relationship. And the customer comes back and says, "You're right. By the way, I did Google this, and you're right."
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and a few things though. I remember Morgan, one of the co-founders, Morgan Doyle. He's our head of research and development, and he said to me, you know, John, we're never going to try and sell somebody our solution if they don't really need it.
Right.
You know, that was one of the things he said to me way back.
Right. Right.
And that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it should be. I mean, you know, if a guy's not cut, he's not interested in having a Band-Aid until he's cut.
That's right.
Okay.
Well,
You know,
I think that's right. I think Tim and I share that one thing that we say, which is that you haven't really sold anything until you sell the second unit.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
yeah.
no, I think the best philosophy I always had, and I was taught this very young age, was like, if you can go back to the same customer 2, 3, 4 times and they still let you in the door, you've been successful, because you've never lied to them, you've never taken advantage of them. And I know at Network General, when I was there in the early days, you know, we could have really taken advantage of people, but we didn't. Many times we'd say, look, you got such a small problem, we'll loan you the unit, you can solve it, or we'll help you solve it, you know. But I wanted to mention one thing. I remember now when I first heard your name, I was working with a guy who was the CTO at Solar Winds, and and he mentioned your company's name, and I was like, oh, okay. And I went to your website, and that's when I found you just released a span port, or I mean a span port configurator. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's been quite a while ago, and I remember, you know, kind of looking it up and thinking that's really cool, and then kind of drifted away, and then I found you again when another friend of mine from a new friend at Solar Winds brought you up. And then I did have a friend at Xilinx that had told me about it, because I was searching for people that were doing good things out in the industry, and the guy at Xilinx said, hey, have you looked at this company? And that's when I found you guys. And of course my first contact was Derek.
Yeah.
And what a great guy. I think all the people I've met in your company, without an exception, have been really nice people, and they have that same attitude that you have. We're here, you know, we build something. If you don't have a car, you don't need tires.
Yeah.
You know, and we're here to sell it to you if you need it. But I play with it a little bit. I don't have time to put. I'm trying to build a new virtual machine to actually run it on directly. But you know it. And I've heard to see.
So John, let me ask another question. So 10 years is a long time for the network to evolve. So give a viewer a perspective of the problems that you saw 10 years ago that are either remain important, or that actually the landscape has changed such that give us an overview of that for the benefit of a viewer.
Yeah, I suppose, you know, I think we started off because we're a campus. We're based on a campus in a National University of Ireland in Galway. So they have some units. They have an innovation centre where they put technical companies, and we're based there. And so we were looking, for example, 10 years ago, maybe, I suppose we spent maybe the first 2 years doing consultancy, and then we developed the product. And as I said, it was around looking at traffic and trying to pinpoint something that was bad or funny going on. And we were lucky at the time, because one of the things, we go along to a company and we say, well, here's a system. It plugs into a spam port, totally passive, there's no risk. So we could, first of all, we could put that into any company. It's not inline. Can't cause any issue with your network. So we could put it into enterprises like Xilinx or universities or whatever. But at the time, one of the things that has changed a lot is that when we went to a network and we plugged our system in a lot of places, universities included, they were riddled with viruses and worms and problems. And we would just simply, after an hour, we would say, here's a list of 20 infected systems on your network. Like one of the organizations that we put in, the university's system in, years ago, when the students returned from the summer vacation and they were doing the online registration, there was so much scanning and viruses and worms on their network, they couldn't do the registration online. They had to do it with paper. They brought down the systems. And the guys had no visibility to where it was coming from. And we went along to them and said, here's a list of 50 machines infected on your network. The deal was done. That was a sale.
Yeah.
Now things have improved from a security point of view. Unfortunately, we had a mistake then we went along first, and people talk about our conversion rate. We expected every time we did a trial that we were going to get the sale. Every time. That changed pretty quick, I tell you. But
yes, I think I'm trying to remember what 10 years ago was really when I think Tim and I we met each other. So it's about right at that time, right? When I maybe a little less than that, but not much less.
No, it's actually been a little more than that, because we met when you were first kicking it off and you wanted some visibility, and
yeah. So it's in that ballpark, and 10 years ago I remember it was a company started to advertise the URL on buses, as if that was like something unique and new, right? Because IBM would say, it's not important for IBM to just say IBM. It would now have to be IBM.com. But my point is that 10 years ago was actually the transition from when companies start to think of the network, the web, the internet as a novelty, to where they all of a sudden realize that, man, that's our entire infrastructure. This is from now on, it's where we get our oxygen, it's where we deliver nutrient, it's where we get sales, it's where we and so in some way it was the golden time, right? It wasn't so much that the network was less sophisticated. The network is a lot more sophisticated now. It's just that our understanding of the importance of the network was so immature.
Yeah. You touched on something there a while back as well, and I tell you one thing that hasn't changed. So I remember a particular deal we were trying to get with a college, a UK college, and at the time, I traveled to London for a week. I would go around giving demos. This is say 7 or 8 years ago, with one of our sales guys in the UK. I remember we arrived at a college in London, and we were trying to find, the way colleges are the same. You're walking through the corridors trying to find the right door. And we knocked on the door, the guy, and eventually he answered the door, and he said, who are you guys? I said, it's John and Dudley from NetFort. And I said, have you gotten an appointment? And I said, yeah. And he said, no, you haven't. And then I pulled up my laptop, first of all, and I showed him the email and the acknowledgement he had. So he'd forgotten about the meeting. But we went to a lecture theatre, and he brought in 3 of his network guys, and we did the meeting. And it was a tough meeting, because he was maybe I caught him on a bad day or something, and he would not commit to anything. You know, I said, fine. I said, this is a trial available whenever you want it. But then the sales guy chased him a bit, and he said, I just had a tough call with him. He said, but he agreed to put in a trial box. And I knew when he put the box in that we had a very good chance of getting the deal. But we got the deal. And I rang him up after, and I said, why did we get the deal? And all I wanted to hear was the fantastic software. That's all I wanted to hear. But that's not what I heard. He said, you know what, John? It's not just the software. It's the whole package. It's the people. It's the support. It's the help you give us, because we got limited time. It's all of those things put together. It's the way you deploy the system with us. And that hasn't changed any. That hasn't changed.
Yeah. So yeah, what they don't want to hear is that it's not your problem.
Yes.
You did what you came here to do. They don't want to hear that. They got family. They want to spend time with the kids. They have their bosses are breathing down on their neck. They can't process credit cards. They got problems. And when you show up, they just want that problem to go away. It's what I think what we used to call one neck to choke.
Yes.
Just present that neck. Let me choke on it, and then just solve my problem and then go away. That's what they want to hear. And this is I think for some of the entrepreneurs out there, this is an important message in that the world doesn't need to know that you're doing you did your job. Well, that's not enough. That's not good enough. Right? That's not how you build relationship. Your job is to solve your customer's problem. Your job is to create value for your customer. So in any case, I think well, John, I want to keep this show short because we can go on for days talking about entrepreneurship and networking and people dynamic and so forth. But as I said, I want you to think of this as really just the opening act. And after when we get off the air, let's see if we can schedule a follow-up, which I think would be very appropriate if it were a live demo of your product, and we can talk about start with some scenario about the problems that your customer sees, and then we launch into a live demo. So put some meat on the table. But I think today is a good start. And I think that the other thing that I would like to invite you back is to kind of talk about some of the knowledge that you have that you think would be good for the community. It will be another year before we do ShockFest, so hopefully you would become a sponsor for ShockFest and you have a chance to present to the audience. But in the meantime, we have created this forum called shockfest.tv, and hopefully we can do some of that. So with that, maybe would you like to kind of give a closing comment? Again, going back to what we start to talk about, which is what is NetFort, why do you care, and what problems you have that really, I mean, as I always said, is how I train my salespeople. I said, look at the people who panhandle in San Francisco. They don't ask if you should give them money. They ask if you have change, because if you don't have change, that's not, you can't go to the next question. So let's talk about problems. What problems does your customer have that they should say, oh, NetFort, that's what I need?
It's all around, when they're looking and they're troubleshooting some activity on the network or a bandwidth issue, or they're looking at more detail on who deleted that file or folder, all the information, any kind of information you get from traffic. But I know the other thing you said there, Denny, like who is NetFort, like I'd like to think, and the whole aspect of support and looking after our customers and looking after people, and people actually, as you go through this, and it's a roller coaster. The other great thing about having a company is, and customers that you continually call to and talk to, is you're going to make a lot of good friends as well, not just from a business point of view. And that's really, but I'd like to say that, and maybe this sounds a bit, NetFort is a group of people who care. And they care about what they do. It's a very tight crew, like 30 people in the company, 35. And it's easy, I suppose, because because we get on so well and it's tight. And like then the customers get that though. When the customers renew every year, our renewal rate is 93%. And
Wow.
that's not by accident. That's because of the people in our company. And I have to, if I was going to end this session by anything, I'd have to say, like, those people and their families and how much they've put into our company. That's what's made us what we are. That's what I'd have to say. That'd be my closing comment.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much, John.
I
So
agree with that.
the first rule of marketing is to get other people to say good thing about you. So we spent the last 30 minutes giving John a chance to talk about himself. So Tim, why don't you talk about John and close the show for us?
Well, first off, someone asked me not too long ago, what product do I need? And I said, well, I'm not, totally intimate with all the problems you have, okay? And the problem with networking today is there's so many more dimensions to networks than we had back when we started Sniffer, or even before that when we started Progressive. So when people ask me what kind of analyzer do I need, can I get away with using Wireshark or open source, I say that's a good start. But I said, when you go to your toolbox at home and you open up your toolbox, do you have more than one tool in there? And they said, well, yeah, I got 4 dozen screwdrivers and 6 Phillip heads and this and this. I said, well, that answers your question. Anytime you have a network, and networks today are very complex, they're constantly being attacked by stupid, which is a lot of the users. Unfortunately, you can't fix stupid, but you can sometimes resolve what they did. You've got people on the outside attacking it. You've got applications that are, that get into aberrant behavior states. You just need more than one tool. And the thing I liked about John's tool is it's sort of a universal tool, the LAN Guardian. And I, to be very honest, I kind of fell in love with the SpanPort configurator. Okay. Now, and I tell people this: you got to plan for tomorrow also. It won't be that long, and somehow they're going to force us to move to IPv6, which is going to be a monstrous situation. And if you've got malbehaved networks now, you're going to have many problems to face. Get your network fixed now. Understand your network. If you can't see it, you're never going to be able to understand the problems. You're never going to be able to solve them. And John's tool is a great visibility tool. I'm not a big fan of SpanPorts. Everybody that knows me knows that. But SpanPorts have their value. John's product, and I can't wait to play with it more. I got one friend of mine that's actually playing with it right now, and I think that's gonna lead to some sales right there. So it's a great product. It's a great team of people. The minute I met them, I fell in love with their attitude, their professionalism, and companies like John's are companies that should do well. They really care about their customers, and to me, that's the first golden rule. My father, who was didn't get much education but wound up being vice president of Tenneco Oil, used to always tell me, it's nice to be important, but it's a hell of a lot more important to be nice. And that's kind of what I see when I look at John and his team. I haven't met anybody there I don't like. Of course, they're Irish, so it's hard, not to like them. But and I guarantee if I get to mother country again, I'm going to be coming over and we're going to have a pint together.
That's for sure. That's for sure.
So I think that's it's like what we talk about all the time is that when you have a choice, make a friend, because friend might not be there when you need them. But anyway, I'm gonna move heaven and earth to try to get another episode in the pipeline, maybe so that they will come out the week after this one, which could possibly be on September 17th, where John would get a chance to do a live demo of his product. So think of this as the first of the two, and maybe we'll do more after that. So with that, I bid you goodbye, and have a great rest of the week, and go out there and be good. Thank you, John. Thank you, Tim.
Thanks very much, guys. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
God bless all.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.